Hi guys, welcome to a new tutorial series where I will be taking you through the process of making a complete corporate trousers. In this video series, I will be showing you how to achieve this in the following steps. Firstly, how to draft and cut a male corporate trousers pattern, which I will be covering in this episode. Secondly, how to construct a slant pocket by the side of trousers, how to attach a front fly zipper, and lastly, how to fix a waistband with belt hose. That is why I'm encouraging you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, so that you won't miss any of this valuable content. And also encourage me by giving me a thumbs up, then share this video so that more people can see it. And to my returning viewers, thank you so much for coming back to have a wonderful time together. If you guys are ready, then I'm ready as well. My name is Bolaji and this is Reggae School of Fashion. In drafting a corporate trousers, I will start by drawing a border line at the edge of my pattern paper. This line is going to be our starting point and also a temporary waistline. Now I've drew out the border line and I also label it as the waistline. As you can see, it is our temporary waistline, not the permanent waistline. So the next step is to insert all the vertical measurements I will be using. So the vertical measurements I'll be using are the crotch depths. I explained into details all measurements needed when drafting a corporate trousers in one of my previous videos, and I also demonstrated how to take all these measurements. So the link to the video will be available in the description box under this video. I will start with the hip level measurement. I will insert the hip level measurement, the crotch depth. So that is the front crotch depth. This pattern is for the front panel. The knee level and the trouser length. Okay, so please, you have to take note of this. Because my trousers is going to be with band, I will have to subtract my band height from all the vertical measurements I will be inserting. And because of this, I will be subtracting my band height from all my vertical measurements. The band height I'm using is 1.5 inches. You can use more than 1.5, you can use 2 inches, you can use 2.5 inches. But 1.5 inches is average for all male figure. So I'm placing 1.5 inches point on my starting point, which is the border line. Then I will insert all my vertical measurements. As I said earlier, the hip level measurement I'm using is 7 inches, followed by the crotch depth. The crotch depth is 12 inches. The knee level 22 inches. The trouser length 39 inches. Then I'll add my hem allowance of 2.5 inches. Now I've labeled all my vertical measurements. As you can see, this is the temporary waistline, this is the hip level, this is the crotch depth, this is the knee level, this is the trouser length, and this is the hem allowance. So the next step is to insert the hip circumference measurements. The hip circumference measurements for trousers is divided into 4. So which means I'm inserting quarter of the hip circumference measurements. So the quarter of the hip circumference measurement I'm using is 9.5 inches. This is the side I started taking my measurement, and because I started taking my measurement from this side, I will label it as the outseam. In trousers, we have outseam and we have the inseam. The outseam of the trousers is the side of the trousers, while the inseam is the center of the trousers. That is where the crotch falls. So I will label this side as the out seam. So you will have it at the back of your mind that when you are taking the hip measurement, the measurement has to be taken from the out seam area. Now I'm inserting quarter of the hip circumference measurement on the hip line. So which is 9.5 inches. If you don't know how I arrive at this, I have a video on how to take measurements for male native trousers and for corporate trousers. So I will advise you watch this video so that you don't get lost at the middle of this tutorial. This measurement is taken accurately on my client because it is a pattern drafting. When I was taking this measurement, I took the measurement accurately on my client. So after taking the measurement, I added 2 inches of ease allowance. So that is why I have 9.5. So I'm supposed to have 9 inches. So if you watch this video, I explained into details and I also demonstrated how to take all these measurements we are using here. So this is a hip level. Then I will place this hip level measurements on the crotch line and on the waistline. Then make it a straight line. So that is 9.5 inches. I'm taking the measurement also from the out seam side. This is the most important aspect of the drafting. Once you get the upper part right, then you are good to go. So this line is a crotch line. So I will label this line as the crotch line. Crotch line. The next step is to insert the hip circumference measurement. So on the waistline, which is a temporary waistline, I will be inserting quarter of the waist circumference measurement. So whatever you have as your waist circumference measurement should be divided by 4. So quarter of that is what you'll be inserting plus ease of 0.5 inches. But all my measurements have added my ease, so I don't need to add ease anymore. If you will be adding ease, make sure your measurements are taken accurately as I've said earlier. This is very important so that you don't end up having a very big trousers. Another thing you need to take note is I took the measurement from the inseam area. This is the out seam, this is the inseam. So the measurement is taken from this point. So that is the measurement I inserted for the hip level on the waistline. So from this point, I measured quarter of the waist circumference measurements forward towards the out seam area. So that was why I arrived at this point. So the next step is to construct the side of the trousers, in which I'll be making use of my pant curve. And because it is a male trousers, I don't need much curve. So I don't need much curve for the trousers because it is for male. So this is the positioning of your ruler. As you can see, the curved side is facing up, while the straight side of the ruler is facing down. So the connection is from the waist point to the hip point. So this is to give the trousers the shape we have on human figure, because our side is not on a straight line. It is a curve, a little bit curve, so we have to achieve the curve. So that was why I used the pant curve. So the connection from the hip level to the crotch depth remain on a straight line, just the way it is. So we are leaving it like so. So the next step is to come to the crotch line and construct the curve. In constructing the crotch curve, I will be inserting the crotch width measurement on the crotch line. And the crotch width measurement is achieved by dividing the thigh circumference measurement by 2. Please, if you get lost, go back to the video I mentioned earlier. The link to the videos will be available in the description box for more understanding. The videos are like a prerequisite to this particular video, which is important for you to watch. So I'll be inserting half of the thigh circumference measurement on the crotch line. Then the measurement is taken from the outseam side. So this is a crotch depth line. So which I have 12.5 inches. Then I'll be using this point to construct the crotch curve. So the connection is from the measurements I measured earlier to the hip point, like so. Then I will construct the curve. So if you are making use of your tools, make sure you know how to use your tools properly. The positioning of your tools is very important. If you don't position your tool right or correctly, the result will be different. You might not get the desired result when you are supposed to position your ruler this way and you position it in an opposite direction. So the results will be different. So you have to learn how to use your tools as well. So this is a crotch curve we have there. So the next step is to construct the trousers leg. In constructing the trousers leg, I will be dividing what I have from the hip point. This is the crotch line. This is a crotch line at the point on the crotch depth measurement to the starting point I have towards the outseam area. So what I have from this point to this point, I will get the midpoint, then extend it downward to make a straight line. So I'll be taking the measurements from this point, which is the outseam point, to this point on the crotch line. So I will take the measurement and get the midpoint. I have 9.5 inches here, and the midpoint is 4.75. Yeah, half of 9.5 is 4.75. So if you don't know how to locate 4.75 on your measuring tape, or you don't know how to read the small lines you have on your measuring tape, I have a detailed video on how to read your measuring tape for pattern drafting accurately. So this will help you to be able to convert your fraction values to decimal and decimal value to fraction. You don't need to round up your measurement to the nearest value you are familiar with. So you use the exact measurement you have and locate it on your measuring tape. So this is half of 9.5 is 9.75. So it is important to learn how to read your measuring tape accurately. So the link to the video is available under this video in the description box. So I got the midpoint, which is here. Then I will be moving this midpoint forward by 0.5 inches. I'm not moving it backward. I'm moving it forward towards the outseam area. So from that point, I will measure 0.5 inches. Then I will erase the former midpoint I have. So the reason for this is to achieve a well-shaped trousers on human figure. So it will help the trousers to come out very well. So instead of 4.75, I have 4.25 now. So I'll be inserting the 4.25 inches on the remaining levels, the lines I have on my pattern paper. So here I will insert 4.25. On the trouser length, I will So on the hem allowance line, I will not be inserting the value. So I will stop on the trouser length. So now I'll be connecting the dotted lines together to make a straight line. Okay. So this is the out seam and this is the inseam. So the next step is to insert the knee circumference measurement. The knee circumference measurement I'm using is 16. Then I'll be dividing 16 by 2. Then I have 8. So I'll be inserting 8 on this line. So 16 divided by 2 gives me 8 inches. So I will be sharing the 8 inches for both out seam and inseam. So which means I will have 4 inches here, then 4 inches here. So, and because when I was drawing the line, when I was dividing this line into 2, I took 0.5 inches away from the out seam and added it to the inseam. So I'll be applying the same rule on the measurement as well. So instead of inserting 4 inches on the out seam line, I will subtract 0.5 inches from 4 inches and add it to the 4 inches that belongs to the inseam area. So which means for the out seam, this is the midpoint. The measurements will be taken from this midpoint towards the side for the out seam and from the midpoint towards this side for the inseam. So instead of 4 inches, I will insert 3.5 inches. 3.5. Then for the inseam, instead of 4 inches, I will insert 4.5 inches for the inseam. So in total, I still have my 8 inches. So if I should take the measurement all together, I will have my 8 inches, as you can see. So 8 inches is half of the knee circumference measurement I'm using. From this point to this point is 3.5 inches. It's supposed to be 4 inches, as I said earlier. I took 0.5 inches away from the measurement and added it to the inseam measurement so that this side will be very curvy. The shape of the pants will really come out well. So I'll be applying the same rule on the trouser length as well. So on the trouser length, I will be applying the same method as well. The ankle circumference measurement is inserted on the trouser length. You can call it ankle or instep measurement. So the ankle circumference I'm using is 14 inches. So this measurement will be divided by 2. Half of 14 is 7. So I'm supposed to have 3.5 here for the out seam and 3.5 for the inseam. But because of the rule we'll be using, I will subtract 0.5 inches from the out seam measurement and add it to the inseam measurement. So instead of 3.5 inches, I will measure 3 inches. So I'll measure 3 inches for the out seam and 3.5 inches and 4 inches for the inseam. So in total, I will have 7 inches. So I'm taking the measurement together. Now, as you can see, I have my 7 inches. So the next step is to connect all the points together to bring out the shape of the trousers. And I'll be making use of a straight ruler and my pant curve ruler. So I will start from the out seam area. Then there will be a connection from the crotch point to the knee point. As I said earlier, the connection from the hip level to the crotch depth point will remain a straight line. So the connection is not from the hip points. Please take note of this so that you don't have a horrible shape for your trousers. So the connection is from the crotch depth point to the knee point. So I'm adjusting my pant curve ruler in such a way the curve is not too much. So can you see what I have? Then connection from the knee level to the trouser length would be with straight ruler. So this is a straight line. So I'm stopping the line on the trouser length level, not on the hem allowance. As you can see, I did not get to the hem allowance at all. So the outseam area is settled, then I will move to the inseam area. The connection on the inseam area is from the crotch point to the knee point, just the same way I connected the outseam. But in this case, the positioning of the ruler will be in an opposite direction. So this is curved out, the outseam is curved out, while the inseam is curved in. So I'll be making use of the whole curve I have on my ruler, because I want the effect of the curve to be very obvious, because it is the inseam. This is what will bring out the shape of the trousers. Then connection from the knee point to the trouser length will be with straight ruler. So this pattern is for corporate trousers, not for native trousers. So if you don't know how to draft pattern for native trousers, I also have a video, well detailed and well explained video on how to draft pattern for a male native trousers, whereby you don't need a waistband. All you need is your elastic rope to gather the waist together. I have a video on how to draft this pattern properly and correctly, so the link to the video will be available in the description box as well under this video. So this is for the front panel. As you can see, the shape of the trousers really come out well and it looks beautiful. You can see the shape for the inseam and you can see the shape for the outseam. They are all looking, both are looking beautiful. So the last step is to shape the waistline. I said earlier that this is going to be our temporary waistline, not the permanent waistline. The crotch measurement I have here is too much for the front trousers, for the front panel. So I will be reducing this measurement, but I have to insert the measurement because this is what I'll be using for the back, and I also had to hit. So in order to be able to use this pattern to cut out the back, so that was why I inserted the 12 inches I used. So I'll be reducing the measurement by 1 inch because it is a male pant. So from the starting point, which is the border line I drew when I started, I will measure 1 inch downward. So this is the point. Then I will be reconstructing the waist level with my pant curve. And this is the positioning of my ruler. The straight side of my ruler faces towards the outseam. As you can see, I don't need much curve effect because it is a male pant. So I need just a slight curve. Okay, then I will cross this out. Then the pattern is ready. So the next step is to cut out the pattern, and I will be using it to construct the back panel. So now I'm cutting on the temporary waistline, not the permanent waistline. If you notice, I did not add any seam allowance on my front panel. All seam allowances will be added on the back panel. So this is how I'll be cutting out my hem allowance. Firstly, I will trim off the excess I have at the lower part. Then fold in my hem allowance so that I don't have any shortage when I'm hemming the lower part of the trousers. Now I will be constructing the back panel using the front panel as the pattern. So firstly, I will divide the measurement I have from the waist to the hip level into two and get the midpoint. I'm talking about the straight line, not the curve line. So I have 5.5 inches. Half of 5.5 inches is 2.75. Then I will make it a straight line. Okay, then I will remove my pattern and reposition it on my fresh pattern paper. Now I've repositioned my front panel. As you can see, this is the waist area now. So I will be cutting on the line, that is the midpoint line from the inseam, and when it is about to get to the edge of the housing, I will stop. So I'm not cutting all through. Okay, then I will turn my pattern again to its original position. Now I'll be spreading this by 2 inches. That is, I'm adding 2 inches to the crotch depth of the back panel so that the back panel will be able to accommodate the buttocks. The back panel is usually bigger than the front panel, so that was why I opened up the midpoint of the hip level. Then I will be spreading this up by 2 inches. Okay, then I will secure my pattern with paper tape. Then I'll come to this edge. This is the open point, so I will measure 2 inches upward. I will measure 2 inches upward and note the point. So this is the 2 inches point. So you can see I've spread the pattern with 2 inches. So with this, the back crotch will be 2 inches longer than the front crotch. And I'm securing this with paper tape as well. Okay. So the next step is to reconstruct the crotch. So we have to reconstruct the crotch because anytime we open up a pattern, there's always be a broken point. So we have to refix the broken point. You can see how the curve line is coming. When it gets to this point, the line does not align anymore. You can see. So I have to reconstruct this in order to have a smooth curve. So, and because of this, I will be transferring this line on the fresh pattern paper. That is the hip line and the crotch line. The hip line and the crotch line. Then on this line, I will measure 1 inch forward. I'm adding 1 inch to the width for the back panel. So that's the crotch width. I'm adding 1 inch. So that is the 1 inch point. Then from the 1 inch point, I will bring it down by 0.25. That is 1/4 of an inch, which is this point. Then I will make it a straight line. So that is, this is the front crotch line and this is the back crotch line. Then I will be connecting from the waist point downward to somewhere below the hip level in order to fix the broken point. So instead for the crotch line to be a straight line, it's going to be a slant line for the back panel. So this is one of the differences we have between the front and the back panels. Now I'll be constructing the back crotch curve. Then I'll position my ruler in such a way my ruler will touches this point. This is a line I drew out for the back crotch line. So I will place my ruler on this point and also put the front crotch point in mind. Then also make sure my curve align with the slant line I drew out earlier. So as you can see, my ruler aligned with the slant line I drew earlier, and also on the 1 inch point I brought down by 1/4 of an inch. So I'm drafting the back crotch curve. Okay. Then I will blend it up with my straight ruler. So after constructing the crotch curve, then I will connect the crotch point for the back to the knee point. So this is the most technical aspect of trousers. It is the back panel. So from the knee point downward remain the same. So now I will be reconstructing the outseam area as well, because after opening up the midpoint, you can see this point has broken. So I have to refix this broken point. So the connection is from the waist to the hip. So I'll be reconstructing from the waist point to the hip point, not to the crotch point. Okay, so this is the new curve line. Then every other connection remain the same. So the next step is to transfer all the lines I have on the front panel to the back panel. Okay, so after transferring the lines, then I will be tracing the front panel on the fresh pattern paper. So that is the remaining part I have not traced out. Now I can remove the front panel. Then I will be closing the opening I have in between on the front panel, then trace out the waistline. Okay, so this is the opening. I'm closing it back, and I will secure it with my tape. Okay. So I've removed the front panel and I flip it over. I turn it upside down. So I will be trimming off the waistline now. So this is the original waistline I drew out. So I will trim it off. Okay. This is the final look of the back panel. As you can see, it is well labeled and the shape really come out well. This is the waistline. The waistline is slant. So this is a hip level. This is a front crotch level. So this line is for the front crotch, while the second line is for the back crotch. Then this is the knee level. This is the trouser length, and this is the hem line. So the next step is to add seam allowance to my pattern, but I will not be adding the seam allowance on the pattern. I will cut out my pattern and add all seam allowances on the fabric. So that is when I'm cutting out the fabric, and I'll be doing this off the camera. I will cut out the fabric and also the lining because it is a corporate trousers. It's going to be a trousers with lining. So if you don't know how to add the seam allowance to your pattern, I have a well-detailed video on how to draft a male native trousers shokoto. So in the video, I explained into details and I showed you how you can add seam allowance to your pattern without losing the shape of your trousers. So the link to the video will be available in the description box under this video. So now I'll be cutting out my pattern. Let's call it a day for now on this video series, and meet me in the next video where I will be showing you how to construct a slant side pocket. So guys, if you have gotten value from today's video, kindly give it a thumbs up and also subscribe if you are here to do so. Till we meet in my next video, always remember, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs.